It's time for what America really needs. Faith, family, fitness, freedom. From the home of Pikes Peak, here are your hosts Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Hello and welcome. You are listening to 100.7 FM The Word. This is Faith, Family, Fitness with Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan. I am Aaron Lujan with the host, Jason Lupo, who is calling in from Orlando, Florida. What's up, Jason?
Hey, how are you doing? It's good to be here. Good to call into the show again. It's always a little interesting to call into the show, but fun nonetheless.
Yeah, man. So what are you doing in Orlando, Florida?
Well, I'm actually out here for a swim coaches conference, but, there's a little bit of fun involved as well. And, I got some exciting news that I don't even know. Our listeners might know before some of my friends, but I did get engaged yesterday. So I did propose to my girlfriend yesterday. So here we are.
Attaboy. Congratulations, my man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Devil, watch out. There's going to be little Lupos in the future.
We're coming to create some uprising and to completely upend all of the nonsense going on in the world, and we need lots of Lujans and Lupos to do that. And
yes.
the upside in this whole thing is that the Republicans and the conservatives continue to reproduce, and the left and the liberal loonies tend not to, for a variety of different reasons, reproduce. And so we will at some point outnumber the leftist liberals if we continue to raise our children in a godly way, and they reflect our worldview. We're going to win the worldview battle over time just by pure reproductive stance.
That makes sense. One thing you're not taking into consideration, though, is that they're importing millions of third world foreign nationals that tend to reproduce 5 to 6 children, I believe, on average, especially those Islamic nations.
That is 100% true. However, what's mind-boggling is a lot of these Islamic countries, even though they're Islamic and they're not necessarily Christian, these religions, their worldview is in some way very similar to Christian worldview.
Yes.
When it comes to the social issues. So that's where you find this balance of, you're like, how come we continue to have these issues? And how come the left continues to stand with these Islamic nations when they are, anti-LGBTQ, and they don't necessarily fit their social structure of what they believe is tolerance?
Yeah, and something that I've said before that has gotten me in trouble, and I'll say it again because I like being in trouble, apparently, is that there's more in common with the Christian faith, and I think with the Islamic faith, than with other major traditions, specifically Judaism. I remember the protests in Glendale, California. You had Islamic and Christian parents protesting the school boards over the pornography in the school system. And it was because Muslims are very traditional people, and they believe in a man and a woman, and their family, and they're traditionalists. And I think a lot of the propaganda aimed at the evangelical right in America has been that Islam is your enemy, and that they're diametrically opposed, using the jihadis that their own intelligence agencies used to wound up, when in reality, I would argue that the general Muslim down the street loves his wife, loves his kids, wants to live honestly and work hard and live an honest life.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the leftist regime has almost created its own religion in a way, right? And
it absolutely is.
This own religious construct that actually is completely and utterly different than just about every other faith that exists today, right? It's a completely different worldview that they've created that doesn't align whatsoever with any other religion in the world.
Right. The religion of secular humanism. And on that note, Jason, we are going to come back after a short break and actually discuss Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald J. Trump and the alliance that's forming in the political campaign with just weeks to go before the election, and the impact on big food and big agriculture. We'll be back. You're listening to Faith, Family, Fitness on 100.7 FM The Word.
Full Armor Sports Teams has a new facility for after-school youth programs. It's located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union with 2 pools for swim lessons and swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting, conditioning, and more. Full Armor Sports Teams is a Christ-centered and family-oriented organization bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on after-school and homeschool programs, go to fullarmorsportsteams.com or call 719-629-SWIM.
You are listening to 100.7 FM, The Word, Faith, Family, and Fitness with Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan. We are back with Jason Lupo live from Orlando, Florida, smoking a cigar, more than likely, maybe eating some chili rellenos with his fiance. Is that all true, or is that fake news?
This is currently true. We're on a lunch break from our swim coaches conference. And so, yes, I am enjoying my cigar because I'm taking a break to be able to do this show as well. So, you know, we're having a lot of fun. That's what we're doing.
You're Rush Limbaugh Jr. I love it. The cigars. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently announced, as many already know, that he's endorsing Donald Trump. And the primary reason, the way that I interpreted it, was that he is issue focused. His concern is protecting the children. And it was almost, in my opinion, a reluctant endorsement. He said his wife was kind of pissed at him for doing so, and there was some pushback. And I think that's true, because when you consider his base, they're generally defected Democrats, independent thinkers. It's not your hard red conservative MAGA crowd. And it was a very interesting story. But what we want to focus on today is the issues that he's injected into the zeitgeist, into the cultural conversation that we're having, which is primarily food and big agriculture and the ultra processed food that is afflicting our nation like a nuclear bomb over Nagasaki. Jason, can you provide us some context on what has happened in the national conversation that Bobby Kennedy has injected, and what has been the fallout?
So I think it's really interesting, and you're missing one primary point, which is RFJ Jr. has long brought into question vaccine safety. And that's a huge concern for a lot of parents. It's become a growing concern. And what is happening on the national stage right now is you have a lot of quote unquote medical health professionals, agricultural professionals that are scared to death that RFJ Jr. is getting the media attention that he's getting. And you have these public health officials who are freaked out. They are going on national media, trying to pitch the safety of these vaccines. You have the agricultural industry not wanting to get rid of the chemicals that they're using within their plants and within their processes to make their lives easier. And we've got a food supply that is utterly unsafe, that we have chemicals that have been banned by nearly every other country in the world still occurring in the United States, still occurring in our food supply. And we don't have answers for why we have a epidemic of disease, whether it be cancer or any other disease, that's at a growing rate. And the media does not want to at all look at the fact that this might be because we've got it wrong. We've had it wrong for a long time, and they don't want to go back and look at it because the perception of science in this country and what the media has pitched to Americans is that science is never wrong. And the true story is that science is always wrong. Science is testing a theory. And we have to look at it from a perspective of science can change. There's only a little more than 2,000 scientific laws that we know for sure that something is going to repeat itself over and over and over again. And when it comes to the safety of some of these chemicals in our food, they haven't even been in our food supply long enough that we could run a legit longitudinal study, but we're already seeing effects. And so this is not a good science experiment. It's a very wrong science experiment. We don't have any control. We're introducing thousands of chemicals into our food. We're seeing the result of the fact that we have growing rates of just about every disease, from diabetes to cancer, you name it. And nobody's going, hey, I wonder if it's because we're doing all this stuff and ruining our food supply. It's bringing it to the front page of the media, and it's scaring some people.
Yeah, well, I think it's resonating because the proof is in the pudding. It's prima facie at this point, right? I mean, there's obese children everywhere. There's cancer rates are skyrocketing. 30, 40-year-olds getting diagnosed with things that people with alcoholism and elder age were diagnosed with. We have every metric across the board exploding. 1 out of 27 children in California have autism. So yeah, we can go over the numbers. Robert Kennedy Jr. does a great job at that. But I think the underlying story here is that you have the age-old dichotomy of large corporations, powerful interests that control the government getting exposed, but this time by someone that sort of has the kryptonite, right? This isn't kooky Alex Jones. This isn't the dark web intellectual right blogger out there, that is being ignored by the masses. We have Kennedy, a someone that I believe was the best candidate for president this election season, who has an iconic brand and is well respected across the political spectrum. And I think that's a point that a lot of people don't make, is that Kennedy appeals across a broad spectrum of people, from the left all the way to the right, and independents and those that aren't even politically involved, because we all eat food, and you would like to think that this is a nonpartisan, non-political issue, right, Jason? That we all have to eat, and all Americans want to be healthy regardless of our political persuasion. And I think that's really what's driving this fear into the hearts of big ag, big food, and the government. And so what I wanted to ask you or discuss in light of this is, what do you think the fallout's going to be? Because these are powerful corporations, and food is so ubiquitous, and the institutions and the systems and the supply chain is so established and so ingrained. Are we going to have to rebuild? Are we going to have to build a parallel economy? What's the fallout? What are the consequences of this?
I think that some of the consequences are almost to the point where it's irreversible. I saw a stat yesterday here in Florida, and I said to the guy, I said, I think this data is wrong. And he goes, that data is from 2014. And the data was that there was only 12% of corn that was not genetically modified left in the United States. And I think that number is drastically wrong. I think we're looking at maybe there's 3 to 5% of corn in the United States left that's not genetically modified. But at some point, these farms, and we've seen it, right? There's stories of it, but the farms that are still producing non-GMO corn, that corn seed is being blown over by neighboring farms. Now all of a sudden, you think that you're running a clean ship, a clean operation, and now you have contaminated your farmland. And now you start having GMO corn. And so we've seen this happen. I don't know as though the GMO corn situation is reversible. And so the only way that we kind of recover from this genetically modified corn nonsense is that the corn syrup that's in all of our food is going to have to be replaced. It's going to have to be replaced back with sugar or some other form of fructose. It's kind of, the damage is done. I don't know if you can change it. I don't know if you can go back.
So specifically, are we going to have startups in the marketplace bringing these foods to market? Are we going to start seeing developments within the supply chain? Are we on the precipice of monumental change with respect to the marketplace and supply chains and logistics and consumer behavior?
I think it's really hard. I mean, go back to the fact that, like, even if you were from day one, if you were to remove, Kennedy gets in office, we have control of the House, we have control of the Senate. We make all of these changes. We eliminate half these chemicals from the processes. We still won't see a change because we've contaminated soil. We've contaminated everything else around it. And there's still this balance, and you can look at Trump's first administration. I do like Trump. I think he's a great presidential candidate. He's got my vote. But the the problem is that during the first administration of Trump, he did have the opportunity to do some of these things, but we still live in this free market economy, in this free market world where corporations are still allowed to push the limits for the purpose of profit. And so as a conservative and as a Republican, I don't want to eliminate the free market. I don't want to eliminate innovation, but the consumer still has a right to know, right? We all have a right to know. We have the right to informed consent. And I think we have the right to informed consent in just about every aspect of our life. And we should have that right. And so when we do things like introduce a potentially harmful chemical, the public should be aware of that. We shouldn't be trying to hide that data. And the media has done a phenomenal job of hiding that data, of claiming that everything is safe, of claiming that all of this chemical additives, all of these things are safe, by calling the people that question it, kooks or crazy or whatever, just some homeschool mom that's upset. But they do have a point and they do have a right. And if we are actually looking at science and we want to call this science, then we have to look at the broader perspective, everybody's perspective, not just a few people's perspective, everybody's research, not just a few pieces of research. And we have to draw conclusions from the giant scope of available knowledge. And we haven't done that because we're ignoring the research that doesn't fit the ideas that the media and these companies want to portray to the general public.
Yeah, I'm giddy right now, Jason. I think that we've tripped over the most monumental issue of our time. And it's like we didn't even know it was right there the entire time. We've been talking about so many bombshell issues and, political, whether it be immigration, whether it be, the woke left and, the transgender stuff. There's been so many bombshell issues these last few years. And now it's like we're turning to the right and all of a sudden we see this, this elephant in the room that's always been there. And the reason I think it's a big issue is that it affects everyone. It's not partisan. It's not political. And it threatens the very powerful interest groups in alliance with the federal government, the fascist system that I see with, our corporatist system in alliance with the federal government. And so I have hope. I'm very optimistic right now, Jason. I see the free market stepping up now that the proverbial cat's out the bag. People are waking up to the book like Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health by Casey and Callie Means, who recently just appeared on Tucker's podcast. 2014, I think there was Food Inc. They were priming the pump. And I feel like we're reaching a precipice right now. So I'm really excited, Jason, is what I want to say. And I want to tell our listeners, go read Good Energy, become educated on ultra processed foods, understand that the tobacco industry had the biggest merger and acquisition season in the late 90s, taking over all of the food industry to make it hyper addictive. It's affecting our health, guys. We're not going to have anything to fight over if we're all dead. So I really am excited about this. And Jason, I wanted to pose this question to you as we're starting to wrap things up. If Trump were to get elected, and do you believe Kennedy is going to get a position, and do you expect decisions that are going to be made from the White House and from the Senate and the Congress, with this new administration, maybe sweeping regulation, maybe major things coming to impact big food, big ag?
Let's put it this way. The entire political system is a system based on quid pro quo. Kennedy doesn't drop out if he wasn't promised something. Kennedy's been promised something, right? Now, whether the Trump administration holds to their promises is another story. But everything points to the fact that Kennedy is probably going to end up with a position in Trump's administration, maybe Health and Human Services. He's going to be somewhere, and he's going to make some noise. And I think we're going to see some change. And I think when we come back from this break, I do want to kind of pull this back biblically and look at God's intelligent design and how that fits into this broader argument as well. So I think that's something that we need to wrap up with. So,
we're going to take a break right. Yeah, we're going to take a break right now. You're listening to 100.7 FM The Word, Faith, Family, and Fitness with Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, is now registering for school year sports programs. Full Armor is a multi-sport teaching and training organization with homeschool options available. All of Full Armor sports coaches are certified and experts in their field. Full Armor's coaches combine for over 500 years of coaching experience. They will help your kids gain fundamental skills, the concepts of teamwork, essential to being successful throughout their lives. Multiple sports options are available now, from swimming, softball and volleyball, to powerlifting and youth MMA. The faith-based approach to making sports fun and productive are a great choice for your kids at Full Armor Sports Teams. Learn more at fullarmorsportsteams.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to 100.7 FM The Word, Faith, Family, and Fitness with Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan. Jason, can you give us biblical context to this conversation we've been having about food?
So I think if we go back to Genesis, right, in God's creation, he ends it every time with, and it was good, right? So God's intelligent design, God's creation for our ecosystem, for our food, for everything was good, right? It was perfect. It was designed as it needed to be. And then we have the fall of man, and we see the thistles, and we see kind of the start to the breakdown of some elements of God's creation, right? But what we've done through our sinful nature and what we've done through this process of whatever you want to call it, whether it be greed or scientific exploration, which I would question whether it's really scientific exploration at that point, because the idea of science has kind of evolved and changed. And so when you look back at the foundations of science, and you got to remember that many of the original scientists that are still talked about today, Sir Isaac Newton, all of these guys were Christians, right? Mm-hmm. And it was an exploration of discovering how great God is, right? Like, hallelujah. God is so intelligent that we're just trying to figure out an element of how God did it, right? How great is God? God's so great. He created these laws of motion, the way that our entire universe functions. And it was an explorative journey. And we've taken science and we've gotten to the point where we've said, hey, God, guess what? You did an okay job, but I can do it better. And in the process of doing it better, we've done it worse. And so that if you go back to GMOs, they were pitched to the world as like they were going to solve the hunger crisis across the globe, because they could grow corn in any weather, in any condition. It didn't matter. They could just pepper the stuff with Roundup, kill anything that ever touched the corn, and the only thing that was going to survive was the corn. The actual definition of GMO corn, or the actual title of GMO corn, was Roundup Ready Crop. Monsanto created Roundup Ready Crop. It was seed that the only thing that Roundup wouldn't kill was the actual thing that you were trying to grow, which meant they could just pepper it with as much, pesticide as they wanted. And
everybody's still hungry. It didn't actually solve the problem.
Well, it didn't solve the problem, number one, because now the nutrient density of corn is non-existent. Corn is not a basis of a proper diet. You can't just feed somebody corn and expect them to live a healthy lifestyle. It's got to be well-rounded nutrients. But it did not solve the problem. In fact, it created more health concerns for those that were working on the fields. And the amount of lawsuits and the amount of times that Monsanto has gone after media organizations and other people to shut them down for speaking out against the crop. What are you trying to cover up for? But going back to the biblical sense is the fact that all of these things that we're trying to do to improve God's creation, it's like spitting on the face of God and saying, like, you did an okay job, but with science, we can do it better.
Absolutely. Jason, Lupo, I am really excited to see where Trump places Kennedy. I hope we have an election. I hope Kennedy gets in and changes food policy in this country. It's a very interesting conversation. It's a conversation that I want to continue to have because we need to protect our children. We need to live healthy lives, and we need to restore God's plan. His will, His kingdom come here on earth as it is in heaven. You've been listening to 100.7 FM, The Word, Faith, Family, and Fitness with Jason, Lupo, and Aaron Lujan. Join us next Saturday, 9 a.m. Thank you.